Hello, welcome to SquishiVision. My name is Harris, and this is my reaction to Star Wars: The Bad Batch, Episode 13, Pabu. This is my media reaction. Having just watched it, not really got any chance to kind of dig into the details. Am I in focus? That's more in focus, I think. Oh god, no, that's much more out of focus. That was worse. It's hard to do the focusing when I'm moving. That's better. When I'm moving in and out, it's a bit hard. Sorry. So here's my reaction. I'm gonna make this relatively quick because it's midnight. I'm watching this a bit later than I normally would be because I was DMing a D&D game. I, after a 2-year hiatus, finally managed to convince, well, not, I didn't actually convince them, but managed to actually find a time where I could pick up a game from when I left off 2 years ago. Basically just to wrap up the game and give some closure to the campaign. So that was nice. I haven't finished that quite yet. I ran a session today, we got a couple more sessions and then we'll complete my first ever campaign. But that's not really here. This was a really good episode actually, considering it was focused on the Bad Batch, which normally isn't good. And the reason it was good is it wasn't an Adventure of the Week episode, because I think that's what makes it really dull and repetitive and boring, and they've done a better job this season of not kind of going back on character development as much as the previous one, especially with their relationship with Omega, but or rather last season. But still, the Avengers are very much, oh, they have to go do a thing, they go get up to hijinks, and then they go home, and it's very episodic. This was interesting because there was no adventure. They've basically cold-shouldered Sid. They've ghosted Sid, and Sid's not happy about that. And this is, in a way, Sid's been quite an ally to the Bad Batch throughout. But we've seen this kind of gradual distance between the Bad Batch and Sid over their relationship. And she appears in this episode in a pre-recorded hologram. And there's like glitches in the hologram. So when she's giving threats, her voice really goes very deep, and it's quite like in a very kind of intimidating fashion, so you know this is gonna bite them back. But basically they don't want to really have anything to do with Sid anymore. And I can't remember her name now. Z, I think, or V, I think her name is. She invites them back to this refugee planet full of people who live there, refugees from the war, and they're kind of in this own little island on the planet. And she basically says, you don't have to keep running, you can sell here, the Empire doesn't care about this rock, but we have everything we need, no one's struggling. I mean, it's a bit of an ideal situation. Typically refugees don't find themselves on places with enough resources to basically have a communist social society, but I guess in the fantasy world of Star Wars, it's not a direct comparison to real life. Usually if you're a refugee, you're having to fight for the scraps that capitalism has left for you, which is very little because you don't have that surplus of resources to basically have a socialist commune. So this is a bit idealist in that sense, but it's just the Empire will come here, we have more than enough, you're welcome to stay here permanently, move in. It's a brilliant place for Omega to grow up and not basically just be around you guys, but actually be able to mix with other people beyond that kind of family scope. And usually when they've done that kind of thing in the past, it's not been convincing, but it's generally convincing, and you can see the animation is fantastic in this episode. You can see generally all of them. There's even the most carefree member of the three of these, which is Wrecker, has that degree of tenderness, has that kind of shield. And this episode animation does a good job of kind of breaking everyone. Hunter seems the most relaxed he's ever been. Even Tech seems the most relaxed. Everyone seems the most relaxed they've ever been in that aspect. And that's just from the facial expression, so as well as the voice acting as well, but mainly from the facial expression. So they do a really good job of depicting that in this episode, and everything's fine. They go to a meal and have a good time. They talk. They watch Prince Sunset, and Hunter's generally thinking, there's no real need to kind of keep doing what we're doing. We can just live here in peace. And I was stressing Titan because I knew obviously that's not gonna be good TV. That's the end game, right? We're not at that point. So I was stressed about what was gonna come, and in this episode that hasn't come yet. So now I'm stressed what's gonna come later on. What's gonna break their their perfect kind of retirement plan. The conflict in the episode is a bit of a kind of a plot shift. It kind of like it's two halves. There's a bit where they're generally tempted by coming to stay here, and then there was a second half which kind of relates, but it's kind of like a sequel relation kind of thing. Basically, a tsunami happens. It's actually very much like real to life, and it's a bit like not creepy, but you know, I remember watching about the 2005 tsunami in the news, and obviously that's nothing in comparison to actually being there. But you know, I went to go see the film Impossible, and you know, as far as this stream isn't even public. No one's watching me. Why is that? What? I don't know why this stream was. I mean, not watching. Everyone watches anyway, but basically, yeah. For what Star Wars The Bad Batch is, showing a pretty like realistic depiction of what a tsunami is pretty terrifying. Like, you know, from the tremors to the animals freaking out to the water retracting back into the sea, and then the rest of the episode is basically evacuation attempt. And I knew the main characters would be fine, but I was generally stressful they were going to kill off the character of the week, who's like the friendly, you can come and live with this person. Like, he's generally like a very nice guy. Like, you immediately become like protective and affectionate of him. And I generally thought he was going to get killed at the last minute, and he didn't. But it was close. So yeah, that happened. And they basically now are refugees, or even more refugees, because they all have to live in like a smaller area. They've lost a lot of their resources. I mean, it's probably this is the first time it's happened in 30 years. But I guess this is the first time they've had to like accommodate so many people, so they're having to rebuild. Tech reckons it'll take a few rotations, which I think is like a few days, and I'm like, that's optimistic to rebuild. I mean, we barely, like, it took like a decade. It took like about, how long did it take to rebuild from the 2005 tsunami? I think like at least like a decade, if not more. I mean, haven't even finished rebuilding from it, I'm not sure. So, but they've had to sit behind, which is nice, but I'm now worried about what's going to happen next. But this was a generally good episode because they broke up the formula, did something different. They let the characters like progress and like be challenged by their ideals and their norms, basically. I mean, it's basic storytelling. To get a good story, you need to have a antithesis to the thesis, and generally there is no antithesis to the thesis in Bad Batch. There is a thesis that barely ever has to face an antithesis, and then we never get the synthesis. Here we get a thesis, then we get the antithesis, and hopefully we'll get a synthesis after this. The cross episodes are good because they tend to have those species, antithesis, and synthesis plot points. But yeah, I'm going to bed because I'm very tired. I've got to be up in about 5-6 hours. I need to pack because I'm going for an overnight trip. So, thanks all for watching. I'm obviously doing the Mandalorian tonight because I'm too tired, and I'm not going to be home tomorrow night. I mean, I might, depends on what time I get to the hotel, I might do it from there. But I mean, I don't have my laptop anymore, so I can't really stream, which I guess it's one of the downsides. I don't have my laptop anymore. And then Friday I'm out at a event, so it might very well have to wait until Saturday before we can do the Mandalorian episode. It's a bit of a shame. Hopefully I can avoid spoilers until then. I'm not entirely sure, but thanks all for tuning in to this reaction video, and I will see you when I next get a chance to see you. Goodbye.